We're getting more details about a secret operation given permission by former FBI Director Christopher Wray and then carried out by special counsel Jack Smith. To help me go through this and other big stories, I have Elijah Schaffer. Elijah, thank you so much for joining me.
You know what? Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited. This story is so deep, so dense, but I think we're going to unpack it right here, right now, and expose the truth.
So you and I were talking off air. It just feels like evil is creeping on goodness all the time. And the more that we peel back this government onion, we see not only how difficult it is to keep the American empire going forward, but kind of how much evil there is within the government. What are your thoughts? Senator Chuck Grassley put out more details about Operation Arctic Frost, which was used to illegally surveil 8 Republican members of Congress to try to find dirt on them, connect them to January 6th, and find material to publicly shame them. This info was then turned over to special prosecutor Jack Smith to go after Donald J. Trump. Many are saying that this was worse than Watergate. I think it's really interesting that they only went after one side of the aisle, Republicans. What are your thoughts on this new weaponization of the FBI being exposed to the American people?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and I want to preclude this by explaining that I recently was under investigation by the FBI. I've experienced the corruption firsthand. I was under investigation for wiretapping an espionage charge related to my work on January 6th that I was doing at the time for theblaze.com. And I found out how corrupt the FBI was because that initial footage on January 6th of Ray Epps, who's definitely not guilty, like all the honest things the FBI says, that original footage of him moving the barriers, knocking the cops down, and triggering the riot, that was my footage, and that was the first footage to go out of January 6th of violence. That was my phone right there. How did I know to be right there? Simply because I didn't think any violence was going to happen. I was just at the front recording. Now, once I had that footage, I called the FBI and I told them I have the footage of the man who started January 6th. I can show you him whispering in ears. I have the evidence of the instigation. I have minutes before. I was so happy. Gosh, we're going to work with the FBI. We're going to take down these people. And they said, well, we're not interested in that person. Anyway, you said you were in the Capitol. I go, yeah, under a credential with the Sergeant of Arms. I had FBI clearance at the time. I go, did you go through security? I go, I'm going to go ahead and retain a journalistic immunity. And then they launched and opened up a wiretapping and espionage investigation against me after trying to tell them how January 6th started. They came after my family. They stalked outside my house. I had to go into hiding. They were interrogating my neighbors, threatening people. And that's just me as a journalist. And then they ended up FOIA-ing, I just preclude this. I FOIA'd them because they went to Apple, got the crack to get into the back end of my phone. And I remind people that that crack that they used to get into all my apps and get into and survey my Signal, all my encrypted apps, they also did that to Tucker Carlson. And they also Apple wouldn't allow the FBI to do that when there was a San Bernardino terrorist attacks where those Islamic extremists murdered several people in an office building. They wouldn't give away the crack because they said it was a violation of our rights. But the FBI was willing to cooperate with the tech companies together to get the information about January 6th to get into my phone, thinking that me being in the Capitol on January 6th was worse than murdering people in an office building in the name of Allah. So my point is that, when we talk about the corruption, and I was going to go on Tucker's show to expose this, and he got fired that week that we were supposed to talk about it. But I'm not surprised from that own personal account. My point is that the FBI does not do what's just in most cases. They choose an enemy. In January 6th, it was the American people. In January 6th, it was journalists that supported Trump. And maybe 2 years, 3 years later, now it's a congressperson. They're not looking for evil people to investigate. They have people they want to investigate, and they're looking to pin evil on them. So that's what it's about. It's about looking for things to take political enemies down. And I don't think all FBI agents are corrupt, but I think that the agency itself is rotten to the core.
Wow, I didn't know any of what you had been through. That's astonishing how they literally tried to go after you, like pin things on you, like ignore what was really happening, pretend that there weren't 275 plainclothes agents hiding in there, instigate the police, do a fake pipe bomb in order to pull police away from the Capitol right as they start to push in. Like it's all becoming crystal clear. But in the moment, I'm sure you were like, what the heck? Like I've got this evidence and now you're making me into the evil bad guy. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Stephen, is the American public is at a loss right now because I want to be careful. I don't want to insult your audience. I don't want to insult the American people. I love the American people. And if your audience is, predominantly of the West, I love them too. I love all of you who are seeking the truth and watching shows like this. And you got to watch shows like this. You've got to support. However, most shows are not like this. They don't actually expose the truth of what's going on. They just cover what other news networks are saying. And those news networks are controlled by very nefarious individuals, right? Jeff Bezos does not give you your items today at 5 o'clock when you order them this morning because he really cares about your life and your convenience. He's a greedy man who wants a lot of money and control. And with the Washington Post, he doesn't run it because he loves truth and journalistic integrity. It's because he wants to manipulate politicians and people and control narratives. And I think that the American people grew up, particularly older Gen X and boomers, in a world where you could trust institutions. News organizations didn't hate America. Our government wasn't pointing its guns and its investigations on its own people. We were fighting the Cold War. We were fighting communism. There was a unifying factor. But, and this is what I'm going to say. It's going to offend people, but Biden said that the greatest threat was within, that it was white nationalists, white supremacists. And that was obviously damaging because what did he mean by that? He meant you, he meant me, he meant white, conservative, Christian Republicans. He didn't mean Nazis. He was talking about actual, just normal conservatives, and they treated us like we were enemies. But Trump also has explained recently that, the real enemies from within, and his administration started doing strange things like revoking people's visas for exercising the First Amendment right. And I thought that was very odd. That was very strange because I'm a Trump supporter. I'm a Trump voter. And I'm also above Trump. I'm a constitutionalist and I love this country. But I think what we have to realize now is that, there are forces more powerful than Donald Trump. There are forces in the government more powerful than the law. Epstein's a good example. And Charlie Kirk's murder is a good example. It's a strange world where there are people that are so above the law, so outside of prosecution, that they have manipulated our democratic system and our agencies to be able to weaponize against their enemies to retain control. And I think it goes outside of our own country in itself. I think these are international players who don't care about borders. They don't care about boundaries. They don't care about district courts. They care about power. I would say it's demonic in my personal opinion, but if you're not a spiritual person, you can at least admit it's evil, right? It's actually it's corruption, not like bribing. It's when your heart is so darkened that you lose respect for humanity, right? It's the sociopathic, murderous mindset. And unfortunately, with the FBI, well, there's many great people, and maybe watch a show that work for the FBI. I have family that works in intelligence as well or has. We have to admit as humans right now that our FBI, whether it's controlled by Kash Patel or Comey or whoever they are left or right, the institution is so bankrupt and so out of the control of the director that I would like to believe that we could trust the FBI, but I believe the FBI needs to be abolished. And that's what they talked about. Think about that. That's what Kash Patel, Trump, people were talking about that. And now that they're in power, they're building a new building. They're respecting them. They're hiding things from the Epstein files. What does that make me conclude? It makes me conclude that, well, these people must be more powerful than the elected officials. They can control them. They're not being controlled by the people we're voting in. So who's really in power? It's the people who control our agencies, and that's not our elected officials. It's hard to accept because we want Trump to be our guy, but I don't think Trump's the most powerful man in America. It's personally what I view from working inside. And who are these people? I think we know, but I think if you go too far deep, you end up getting committing suicide. So
Yeah.
I don't want to die. So I'll leave it there.
Yeah. Oh, you just made me think of a Bible verse from Jesus where he's like, you can't put a new patch on an old skin because the bottle of wine will just burst, right? Like
Mm.
we want to trust Patel. I had Patel on my show several times. I think he's probably a good guy, but you put a new patch on an old bottle and it just can't take it. You put a new patch on an old pair of pants, it just can't handle it. So maybe that's where we're at. But to me, as I read through this, I don't have a lot of confidence that anything's going to come of it other than, putting out a bunch of Twitter tweets exposing it. But this is obviously Christopher Wray's FBI colluding with Joe Biden's DOJ to give Jack Smith power to go after a former president at the time. I mean, how is this not collusion and conspiring?
Yeah, Stephen, it is. It's actually beyond collusion, because what we have to really ask ourselves is, how much more information do we need to accept that these institutions are corrupt? We don't need any more. What we need is accountability. And the question that then we have to ask ourselves after the accountability is, why aren't we getting it? Why is it that we have evidence in our hands? If you go kill someone today and you film it and you show the gun and you show your face, once it's verified not being artificial intelligence, so got to do that, you will go to court, you will be convicted, and you will pay either with your life or with the rest of your life in jail. But these people nothing happens to them. I think it's driving people crazy. I want to pick your brain here. Why do you think we can't get accountability? Is it that, A, you get good guys like Kash Patel who want to do what's right, and the FBI comes and says, hey, on these issues, fall in line or we will kill your entire family. We will kill your girlfriend. We will kill your parents. Is that what happens? B, is it that you find out information that's so complex, you realize your entire worldview was wrong? It was based upon a presupposed, narrative that you realize the world's more complex, and that, you basically, by trying to do what's right in a small thing, may cause a system to crumble and may destroy an entire nation? Or C, is it that people just get corrupted by power, or none of the above? Like, I don't know what you think, but I genuinely just get demoralized because we hear this, like, okay, cool, what are we going to do about it? And it seems like every day I wake up, it's the same answer from the people who have the power to do something. It's nothing.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. So I was able to interview Congressman James Comer. He led the investigation against Joe Biden. And I asked him off camera, this wasn't off the record, just off camera, why didn't you guys go after him? You have an entire book that you're trying to make a bestseller about the corruption of the Biden family. And he said, we got so close to the election that we just ran out of steam and will to get it done because he's leaving and we all just move forward. And I was like, you guys ran out of steam and will? It's like, think about this. They're like, well, maybe it's not worth the money to do it. But that's not how Democrats think. They were willing to spend $40 million through Jack Smith to ruin Donald Trump. They were willing to spend $35 million through Mueller to go after the Russia hoax. So they're willing to expend the energy and the money to destroy their political enemy. And Republicans are like, we've got all the evidence, but we're just not willing to spend the money or the energy. To me, that's really frustrating because, and I consider myself a libertarian. I vote Republican, but I see a lot of feckless, weak leaders on the Republican side. And on the Democrat, I see a lot of evil, but at least they're willing to go the distance. I don't know. It's frustrating to me. Let me ask you something. How much time do you spend every day on a web browser? How much time do you spend clicking, searching around, scrolling, typing, endless tabs? It's a lot, right? Well, there's a new AI web browser from Perplexity called Comet. And that is completely changing the way that you interact with your web browser. Using Comet feels like having a personal assistant living in your web browser that can actually do things for you across the internet. That's right. It can do things, not just get you answers. You can ask Comet to handle tasks for you, and it literally clicks, types, searches, and scrolls like you would, to get things done for you in the background while you go about your day. Comet can shop for you, make reservations, book travel, summarize articles or videos, send emails, schedule meetings, and a lot more to make your life easier. Let me give you an example. I'm about to go on a business trip to Tampa. So I've asked it to find me the best Mexican restaurants in the area. I want them to have a reservation, good reviews, and they have to have Diet Coke. Well, it found the one that I'm planning to go to. It set up the reservation and it's dumped it over to my calendar. You can use Perplexity and Comet to book fun things with your kids or grandkids, or buy things and send it to them. It's really quite amazing. Pretty cool, right? Download Perplexity's new AI web browser, Comet, by heading to pplx.ai/Gardner and let your browser work for you. Plus, right now, when you download Comet, you get a month of Rumble Premium for free. That's pplx.ai/Gardner. Go check it out right now. I'll leave a link down below.
I bring something up all the time to powerful people when I'm hanging out with them in the right wing, right? You're libertarian. It's still, everything's right wing now. I mean, anybody who's not trying to chop the genitals of children off is now right wing. It's just unfortunately the reality. And when I talk to individuals in media or in politics, politicians, CEOs, etc., I tell them, like, we have a really big problem in the right that is this artificial morality. And what I mean by that is we often handle the work of the left on our own. We police ourselves, sort of like those experiments where, you inflict enough pain on a dog that even if you lift your hand, the dog flinches because you don't have to hit the dog anymore. And then when the dog sees you, eventually it just already flinches because it's so used to you hitting it that it's just has an automatic reaction. The right is so afraid of being labeled Nazis and anti-Semites or, Ku Klux Klan or racist, that they purge the ranks of anybody who can actually do anything, and then they stop any investigations or inquiries that might actually hold their enemies accountable. And I mean this genuinely in terms of the left grabs, the example is the left will find some insane kid like David Hogg, who one time I went undercover fake as a CBS News and got an interview with him and asked him why he wasn't at the school and why he's taking credit. And his security physically assaulted me and threw me out. But they'll take David Hogg, who's a liar, allegedly wasn't even at the school during the murders, which are down the street from my office, by the way, and is kind of, the guy needs some protein, right? He's a very effeminate little tiny, he's thinner arms than my wife, and that, don't tell her I said that, but it's true. And you take him, and what do they do with this soy boy, maybe homosexual, sort of gun advocate kid? They put millions of dollars into the March for Our Lives, create an entire movement around him, and they give him a microphone, and they say, please tell the people what's going on. And they do this because they control the Overton window then. Because what they do is, so then people like AOC can come into power. Because a bartender who wants a few socialist ideas, she's not calling to ban all guns and take away constitutional rights. They're setting a standard that we will push our radicals. When they prosecute for Russiagate, they say they're willing to make up lies, fake dossiers to tell the right, we will lie, we will cheat, and we will steal to ensure you don't win. And then all they have to do to us is call us, hey, you know what? Are you a racist, Elijah? And then all of a sudden, every Republican Party will never invite me to speak at their events again because some Mediaite or Daily Beast called me a racist. And it's like, so the left says one word against us, and you guys take precaution and cut your best people down to avoid being called a mean name. And your left is willing to murder you in order to win. And you can call them the radical left, you can call them communists. The left doesn't care if you call them communists, which are radically more violent than fascists and have killed more people. But if you get labeled a fascist in the right wing, no one will ever even speak to you. If you're a communist in the left wing, they'll put you into political office. They will make sure you're a senator or a congressman. In the right, if you just are kind of like known as being a little bit pro-white, you won't even get invited to the dinners. So it's this really handicapped self-policing that I believe was intentionally implemented post 1994, when the neoconservatives took over to set a standard to retain power. And the neoconservatives who control, they've rebranded as sort of this. I'm not gonna get you in trouble, but as this sort of Zionist, globalist sort of hegemony of the military-industrial complex. It's sort of this. I don't even know who's really in power anymore. It's sort of this international cabal of the EU, the United States, right, NATO, sort of all working together to have centralized control and power down. These people are so in control of the right wing that you can have Peter Thiel, who, of course, funded J.D. Vance, get on air, say literally he doesn't know if humanity can continue, get us our tax dollars, get propped up in the Republican Party, and he literally says, my technology, I'm proudly, was used to stop the far right from gaining any movement in the European Union. All these nationalist people who wanted to stop immigration, all these people who wanted to protect the borders of their country and keep Europe European. I stopped that, and so now Europe is liberal and has unlimited immigration. And that guy, he can say all that stuff openly and proudly, and the right is still is afraid to say anything. Because ultimately speaking, we have the most censorship and controls in the right wing internally. Because everyone knows if you go against Vance or Trump right now, you'll get kicked out of the party. And so, the right's afraid to really accept the fact that we have an enemy from within. We have our greatest censors, our greatest control mechanisms that are stopping us from really taking back our borders and our country are our own people, like Peter Thiel. It's our own people. And the left doesn't even have to do anything to us. All they have to do is say mean names, and then we clean house. That's all I was gonna say. Is the left has so much control over us that it takes a couple words, and we're so PTSD'd by their lawsuits and their accusations and their trials that we don't even go to war with them. We don't even pick up a sword anymore. I'm trying to change that. I want to go to war. I'm at war, Stephen. I'm fighting. You are at war. So I'm not accepting that. It's a very complicated concept. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it's always hurt my heart that we are the biggest enemy of ourselves, and we are the reason why the right wing doesn't have a lot of institutional powers, because we're unwilling to wield it. Bukele did it in El Salvador, and he didn't care.
No, that dude is a role model. I wish, I think that was what Elon Musk was expecting, was a little bit more of Milei from Argentina and a whole lot of Bukele from El Salvador, and we're just not seeing it. Let me bring something up here. I don't agree with everything that Marjorie Taylor Greene says, but she said something interesting about this whole government shutdown. So she is saying now, hey, listen, I don't like Obamacare. I would get rid of it. We call it the Affordable Care Act, which is BS. It's not affordable. But if we don't keep those tax credits, everybody's premiums are about to double. And so she's saying, I'm going to vote against money for illegal immigrants, but I'm going to vote to reopen the government so that our healthcare can become affordable. She then goes on to say, Republicans should really look at getting rid of this, because once the government got involved in healthcare, it became more expensive for everybody. So I never call it the Affordable Care Act, because it made my health insurance completely unaffordable. Anyway, she then goes on to say, why is it okay for us to give $30 billion to Israel, $100 billion to Ukraine, but we can't make life more affordable for the American people? What are your thoughts on that, with the war money and with Obamacare being really unaffordable and reopening the government?
It's a good question, Stephen. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene has been on my show. I think she's a great individual. I think she is reasonable. Even if people think that she's a little kooky or crazy, I remember she talked about those foreign space lasers or whatever, and people dismissed her. And then they literally, I don't know if you saw that a couple weeks ago, debuted that they were real and that there's these new laser technology they're using, meaning she might be a little kooky to some, but she's not usually super wrong, right, about her position. So when she takes a position like this, it looks like she's trying to play devil's advocate and work with the Democrats to get her constituents paid, right, to get the people that are working for the government paid in her district. And I think she's bringing up a very important point that has been left for too long. I think your audience is going to hate me, especially with this one. I've been saying so many things that make it the right hate me, but I'm telling you, I'm so pro right wing, I'm so pro God, pro liberty, pro Constitution that I have to question my own sanity sometimes, because it feels like we're spending all our money to fight everyone's wars, and we're not spending any money on our people. When I worked in China, and I'm not paid by the Chinese government, as people claim, when I went to China, I was shocked about how much the U.S. lies about them in our movies, on our news, in our social media, our influencers, complete lies. The streets are clean. The people have nice things. And you know what? Yeah, they traded their freedom for that. But I got to remind people, you're not free in America. We have the Patriot Act. We have unconstitutional authority in our government. The government may not put a million cameras everywhere, but they're spying on you on your phone. China's not some crazy surveillance state, and the U.S. is some free state. They're both surveillance states, and they're both authoritarian. And when I was there, I realized what a country can do. I don't want to be China. I don't want to model their government. I don't want communism. I don't want any of that. But I saw what life looks like when you use your taxpayer money to build your infrastructure in your country versus fighting, for bombing the hell out of people that don't listen to you, destroying Libya because they want to get off the petrodollar, things like that. When you don't live like that, you really can have a nice country. And I think that she brings up a point that's very, very true. The United States used to be a very nice country, and unfortunately it is in some parts, but it's very scary in cities, very dangerous, dilapidated, infrastructure is not great, public transportation isn't amazing. And rest in peace, Irina Zarutska. Even if you take transportation, you're not safe. I think she's trying to open up the conversation of why are we not using money to make Americans' lives more affordable? And if you're right wing, like this is socialism, and this is a left wing stuff. It's like we've been so hoodwinked by the wealthy class in our country that we think using our taxpayer dollars to subsidize things in our country to help Americans is like socialism and left wing. When in reality, it's actually just how countries should operate. The tax dollars should go to the people, and it did work. It works in homogenous, ethnocentric countries. It works in Israel. These are tax dollars. They get free education, healthcare. It works. It's worked in Australia before immigration, and it was a very safe and nice place. These ideas of the government using its money on people isn't inherently left wing or bad, but unfortunately, we've been tricked by the billionaire class into thinking that all of our money should never be used on us, and if it's ever used on us, we're socialists and Marxists. Instead, we should send it to fight another war in the Middle East. And that's really, it's a psyop. You have to realize the Republican Party and the Democrats both agree on one thing. It's making sure that billionaires remain richer and that the American people think that it's a bad thing to have the tax dollars spent on the American people. And I'm not a leftist. I'm not a socialist, not a Marxist, but people are going to think that I am just for saying that. So yeah. I think that's what she's bringing up.
Yeah, no, I think my audience, it's going to resonate what you're saying, because the first time my eyes were really open to this was, my channel really took off covering the COVID lockdown, the stimulus checks and all that. And President Trump, right before Christmas, said, why are we giving so much money to foreign nations and we won't give any to our own people? And then he put out this list of all the places we're putting money. And I started Googling these, and I was like, they hate us, they hate us, they hate us, they hate. So why are we giving so much of our money borrowed from China or from the American taxpayer to these nations that hate us, but we won't give any money here? Then when RFK Jr. ran, one of the things he said to me was, we spent $9 trillion on Middle East wars and got nothing for it. The Middle East is literally better off than us. And then I see Trump do this Middle East tour, and I see these palaces, and they've got schools and hospitals, and life is really good. And I just keep thinking, America is this great country. Why is it so bad to pour money into America? Why do we need so many military bases around the world? Why are we funding so many different wars? But you ask that, and they start making you look like you're crazy for wanting America to be great again.
Yeah. So what I'm hoping that your audience realizes, the next COVID, right? The next thing, you're in it, right? So people are like, how do I start a podcast? How do I, make change? How do I do this? What you're going to have to do in this season is, the way that you're going to get persecuted, or the way that you're going to be the outsider, is by doing something very unpopular. You're going to have to explain to people how the left and the right work together in the United States to screw you. That's what it is. It's that it's not about the R or the D. It's about me. It's about what is affecting my life. And I think you and I spoke briefly before this. We won't get too much into a religious talk. We talked about a lot of people, especially today, are real big. I mentioned I'm seeking God. I'm not perfect, but I'm seeking God. This is like the first time in my recent adult life that I've decided I need God. And when I tell people that, I tell them, because I'm trying to just be vulnerable and honest. Like, hey, I'm real with you. I need God because I'm very broken, and I need to get in touch with my Creator. And then people always tell me, oh, you got to become Catholic. You got to become Orthodox. You got to become Mormon. You got to become this. And I'm going, hey, what if before I just put a title on myself? Because I could say I'm Orthodox, or say I'm Mormon, or say I'm something. But if I'm not living out the teachings, if I'm not applying the disciplines, am I really that thing? And I go, don't try to control me and put something on me. Be more concerned about my salvation and my heart. And if I'm really turning towards God, can we focus on that first? Because I want to be authentically a follower of God, and I will trust God that He will show me the right church to join. But the most important part is the authenticity. And the reason why I think a lot of people are like this is we tend to be team sports players with everything, with religion, with politics. Are you a Democrat? Are you a Republican? And sometimes when you're like, I'm really neither. I'm more like an America First nationalist. I just want policies that are good for our country. Like, for instance, paying for our healthcare is a socialist idea, the government paying for it. I'd rather ultimately pay no taxes and have no healthcare, right? So that's what my dream. That's not what's happening. They're taking my money. But if I would say I'd rather have my money go from buying a Patriot missile system for Israel, I'd rather have that money go into paying for healthcare for the elderly in our country that have been here for at least 3 generations. I get called a socialist by the Republicans. And then if I say, oh, I don't want to pay taxes at all, I'd rather not, the Democrats call me, crazy. And, I don't care about old people. It's like, well, I'm not really pleasing either side with that answer. But what I am fundamentally saying is I want effective policy that helps our people. And if they're going to tax us, which it's very hard, it's easy to start taxes, very hard to untax. If in the meantime, can we at least make a system that works for us? And you're going to find, if you have that position, you're not well accepted in the Democrat or the Republican Party, because they're not much interested in platforming, boosting anybody who's trying to help the American people. They want people who help the party. And you get sort of that 1984 allegiance. It's like communism. That's what I'm saying. It's like China. You realize America's like China. It's all about how loyal you are to the party and not questioning how the party's helping the people. And so it's all the wars, everything we do here in this country is about, we just got to get Republicans in. We got to get Democrats in. Oh, dude, a Democrat got in. A Republican got in. And then if I were to ask most people about their congressman, even in their district, their House Speaker, like, what does your representative believe about A, B, and C? They can't tell you. They're just happy they got a Republican in. And that's the hoodwink. So, that's where you get these rhinos. Like, well, he's a rhino. Yeah, because they have gotten it in your head that it's about colors, about red and blue. It's about left and right, and that you don't even think for yourself anymore. And when you start thinking for yourself, it becomes a very dangerous game, Stephen. I've lost a lot of friends. I've been blacklisted from a lot of places and things for just trying to want what's best for the American people. And I say that with chagrin and deep sadness, because when you talk to people say, just get in line, man. Just take the paycheck. Just say what they want you to say. It's not about, it's already lost, buddy. It's just about getting that money machine and getting your hands in it. And there's not a lot of room for effective people like yourself or honesty. And I'm surprised you're doing as well as you are. Not surprised because you're talented, but surprised because usually shows like this that are so based in truth and interviewing open-minded people, they don't exist often at all or very long. So, my congratulations to you, and honestly, my encouragement to keep going, because if you can talk to someone like myself and Kash Patel, you've put yourself in a very unique position. God's really, blessed you with a large platform, and I think it's absolutely wonderful to see you using it and not giving into the corruption. Because I'm sure it'd be easier to just, not interview someone like me and rub the back of the party and just do what they want. But unfortunately, I think you're an independent-minded person. You said you're a bit, you're not so hardline party mindset, that I think that's going to be used for the benefit. And anyone who's watching the show, keep watching the show regularly, because you never know who he's going to have on. And also, these conversations, you might think they're happening on other shows, but they're not. They're not trying to get you to think. They're trying to get you to think like them. But a show like this is trying to get you to open your mind. So I appreciate you and what you do.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I enjoy talking to people from all different backgrounds. I don't ever pretend to think that the way that I think is the correct way, and so I like to open my mind, and hopefully the audience appreciates it. Elijah, if people want to follow you online, how can they catch your show?
Yeah, so you can watch my show Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. It's in the evening. It's called The Rift, THERIFT. You can watch it on Rumble and on X, YouTube. The channel's name is Rift TV. You can also read my articles on my website, rifttv.com. It's great. And my name is Elijah Schaffer, so you can find my personal profiles at Elijah Schaffer on X, Instagram, etc. And The Rift is also just Rift TV across all platforms. Appreciate you, Stephen.
Oh, absolutely. I'll put those direct links so people can find you. We'll have you on again. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Stephen. You too.